What if I told you your entire future, the person you become, the peace you feel, doesn't depend on some grand decision, but on what you do in the first 10 minutes after you wake up? It's not the breakthrough moment that shapes you. It's the boring one, the unnoticed one, the one no one claps for. The Stoics understood this long ago. A strong life isn't built in sparks, but in steady fire. Through habits, through repetition, through what you do when no one's watching. Here's the truth. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. You are what you consistently do, not what you dream or say or feel, but what you return to daily, especially when it's hard. That's where identity is formed. That's where peace is earned. In this video, we'll explore how Stoics like Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus use structure not as a cage, but as a path to real freedom. If you're ready to stop chasing motivation and start building a life rooted in clarity and control, this is for you. And if you find this helpful, please like and subscribe. It truly helps share Stoic wisdom with others who need it.
Number 1.
Habits over big decisions. Most people believe their lives will change through one big decision: a new job, a relationship shift, a sudden epiphany. But the Stoics saw this differently. They knew that your life is not shaped in moments of drama, but in moments of discipline. Marcus Aurelius didn't write Meditations in one sitting. He wrote it in the quiet mornings, again and again, not to impress others, but to sharpen his own mind. You become what you give your attention to, he wrote, not once, but daily. And this is the core truth. What you do every single day matters more than what you do once in a while. We all have turning points, yes, but who you are when no one's watching, that is what defines you. Whether you reach for your phone or sit with silence, whether you complain or give thanks, whether you react or pause, these are not neutral acts. They are habits, and habits are not just what you do, they are what you become. Epictetus taught that philosophy was not a theory to admire, but a practice to live. You don't become wise by listening to a lecture once. You become wise by doing the work, rising early, questioning your impulses, refining your speech, and controlling your desires. Every day the musician does not wait for inspiration. They tune the instrument. They repeat scales. They return to the basics. Not because it's exciting, but because it's essential. Still, many of us fall for the illusion of transformation through emotion. We get hyped. We say, starting Monday, I'll fix my life. But the Stoic knows, nothing starts on Monday if it doesn't start now. Stoicism asks for no promises, only patterns. Seneca once wrote, "No man becomes great all at once." It is the patient repetition of small choices, done on ordinary days, that leads to an extraordinary life. Let's take a modern example. James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits. His core philosophy echoes the Stoic spirit. Focus not on goals, but on systems. Don't chase motivation. Design a repeatable habit. 1% better each day sounds like nothing, but over time, it rewires your brain. It shapes your identity. And this is what the Stoics understood long before. Behavioral science caught up. Identity is not discovered, it is built slowly, brick by brick. Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, lived this truth before he taught it. After losing everything in a shipwreck, he began studying philosophy, not by proclamation, but by daily practice. He rebuilt not only his fortune, but his soul, through relentless commitment to principle, not once, but every day. You think you need a revolution, but what you need is a rhythm, a stable rhythm of simple actions repeated with intention. Make your bed, drink water, read a page of something timeless. Take a breath before responding. These acts seem small, but they are the architecture of peace. They are not for show. They are for the soul. So ask yourself this. When was the last time you chose something small and did it every day without needing praise or motivation? If you can't answer that, you've already found your starting point. Begin again, not with a grand gesture, but with a quiet commitment, one that no one sees, but one that changes everything. Because in the end, it's not your goals that will shape your destiny. It's your habits. And your habits are shaped by what you're willing to repeat, even when it's hard, even when it's quiet, even when it's boring. That is the way of the Stoic. That is the way of real power.
Number 2.
Identity is built, not found. People often say they're trying to find themselves, as if identity is some hidden treasure buried beneath the right job, the perfect relationship, or a dramatic turning point. But the Stoics didn't buy into that idea. They didn't believe your best self was something you stumble upon. They believed it was something you build. Through habits, through repetition, through discipline. Seneca once wrote, "Each day acquires something that will fortify you, not something you wait for, not something you hope to discover, something you earn." And this is the shift most people never make. They wait, they delay their lives until they feel more motivated, more certain, more ready. But the Stoic knows readiness is not a feeling. It is a result. You don't wait to feel like the best version of yourself. You act like them. You do the hard thing now and clarity comes later. Confidence follows action, not the other way around. Every small action is a vote. Wake up early. That's a vote for discipline. Tell the truth even when it's uncomfortable. A vote for courage. Choose presence instead of distraction. A vote for peace. Each choice is small, but over time, those votes accumulate. They shape your identity not through one big moment, but through the invisible repetition of consistent behavior. This idea has been proven in modern behavioral science. Psychologists call it identity-based habits. The principle is simple. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems, and your systems are built by what you do daily, not what you plan, not what you intend. What you do. That's why Epictetus said, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. Decide who you want to become, and then start acting accordingly. Marcus Aurelius didn't become a man of virtue by accident. He didn't become wise just by thinking. He practiced in silence. Every morning he returned to his journal. He reminded himself of what mattered. He repeated the same ideas. Not because he forgot, but because identity is built through repetition. Not once, not sometimes, but daily. He wasn't chasing virtue. He was rehearsing it. And we see the same thing in modern times. Look at Ryan Holiday. Before he became a best-selling author, he already lived like one. He wrote, he read, he studied, not because anyone was watching, but because that's who he chose to be. His external success didn't make him a writer. His daily repetition did. And let's not forget, identity isn't only about what you do. It's also about what you don't do. You become calm by refusing to feed drama. You become strong by saying no to comfort. You become clear by stepping away from noise. Every action is a form of construction or destruction. You are always becoming something. The question is, are you becoming it on purpose? So ask yourself, what do I do consistently? Not what do I hope for? Not what do I believe about myself? What do I repeat when no one is watching? If the answer doesn't match the person you want to be, don't collapse. Just cast a new vote. Choose again. Choose better. Because your identity is not waiting out there in the future, it is being forged right now, in the habits you commit to today, this hour, this breath, not in the spotlight, not in the storm, but in the quiet repetition of your choices. You don't find yourself, You build yourself quietly, repetitively, stoically. And when you do, one day you'll look up and realize you've become the kind of person you used to admire.
Number 3.
Simplicity and systems over motivation. Most people wait for motivation like it's a divine signal. They believe that once they feel ready, everything will change. Their habits, their discipline, their direction. But that day rarely comes. The Stoics knew this. They didn't place their hope in feelings. They placed their trust in structure. Marcus Aurelius never wrote, "Wait until you feel like doing what's right." He wrote, "At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I am rising to do the work of a human being." That's not a motivational poster. That's a philosophy of commitment. And this brings us to a brutal truth. Motivation is unreliable. It's like weather, sometimes warm, often cold, always changing. If your habits depend on it, you'll break down the moment the feeling fades. Instead, the Stoic chooses systems, simple, repeatable patterns, environments that remove friction, processes that continue whether the emotion is there or not. This is how you build discipline that lasts. Not by chasing highs, but by engineering routines that function in silence. Take James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits. He writes, "You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems." This echoes exactly what Epictetus said 2,000 years earlier. First, decide who you would be, then do what needs to be done. Systems begin with clarity about who you are, what matters, and what behavior reflects that. Then they become tools of stability. But what does that look like? It's not complicated. That's the point. Simplicity is power. Wake up and immediately write down your priorities. Leave your phone outside the bedroom. Keep your journal in the same place. Do your most important task at the same hour each day. These are not glamorous strategies, but they work because they remove decision fatigue. The fewer choices you make, the more energy you have for what counts. Now consider Leonardo da Vinci, not just an artist, but a disciplined observer. He filled notebook after notebook with diagrams, reflections, and curiosities. Not when he felt like it, every day, even when his work was misunderstood, his system of observation and recording continued. Over time, those pages became masterpieces, not because he relied on motivation, but because he designed a life of structure. Stoicism isn't about waiting for the spark. It's about becoming the flint. It's about being someone who shows up even when the mood is gone. As Seneca wrote, "Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity." Preparation is built in systems. When you clean your space before the chaos arrives, when you write before the thoughts are sharp, when you build discipline before you're tested. So ask yourself, where in your life are you still relying on mood instead of method? Where are you making things too complicated, using emotion as a compass instead of using structure as a map? Most people fail not because they're broken, but because their systems are. They wait to feel like it, and the Stoic knows that wait is endless. If you want to become consistent, make it easy to be consistent. If you want to build strength, build systems that train it automatically. Want to read more? Put the book on your pillow? Want to be offline in the morning? Use a real alarm clock. Don't change your identity with effort. Change it with environment. Because in the end, freedom doesn't come from doing whatever you feel like. It comes from having structure that keeps you rooted when life shakes you. Systems don't imprison you. They protect you from laziness, from inconsistency, from chaos. That's not just strategy. That's Stoicism in action.
Number 4.
Design your environment. The Stoics taught us that we must take responsibility for our inner world. But what they also understood, something many modern thinkers overlook, is how deeply our outer world shapes our behavior. Environment is not neutral. It either supports your discipline or it silently erodes it. Epictetus warned, if you are ever tempted to look for outside approval, realize that you have compromised your integrity. That doesn't just apply to people. It applies to places, to habits, to cues. If your surroundings distract you, your discipline will be hijacked. Not because you're weak, but because you've made it hard to be strong. So here's the uncomfortable truth. Willpower is not enough. No matter how focused you are, no matter how committed you feel today, your environment will always have the final word. Why? Because your surroundings trigger your habits before your mind can intervene. A cluttered desk triggers avoidance. An open tab triggers distraction. A phone in your pocket becomes a leash on your attention. The Stoic solution isn't to fight harder, it's to fight smarter. And that means shaping your environment before it shapes you. Seneca lived this. Though he was a statesman with access to luxury, he chose simplicity. He deliberately stripped his surroundings of excess, not because it was trendy, but because he knew comfort makes discipline optional, and when discipline becomes optional, freedom is lost. He wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." That imagination is fueled by noise, by clutter, by chaos. So he cleared the space, and in doing so, he cleared his mind. This principle is now widely understood in behavioral design. Researchers like B.J. Fogg and James Clear teach that if you want to change your life, don't start with motivation. Start with your environment. Make bad habits harder to reach. Make good habits easier to access. Want to stop checking your phone? Put it in another room. Want to walk more? Leave your shoes by the door. Want to write more? Close the door, open the notebook, create the space. And it's not just about physical design, it's about social design too. Who do you spend time with? What conversations do you feed yourself every day? If your environment is filled with gossip, noise, and reactivity, it's nearly impossible to stay anchored in peace, Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily. You will meet people who are selfish, arrogant, deceitful. He didn't say to avoid life, but he prepared his mind. He trained his expectations and surrounded himself with the wisdom of books, not the chaos of crowds. So ask yourself, what in your environment is making the right thing harder than it needs to be? Is your phone the first thing you touch in the morning? Is your workspace a shrine to distraction? Are your relationships reinforcing the values you say you believe in, or slowly weakening them? The Stoic path isn't built through punishment, it's built through alignment. If you want to be calm, design for silence. If you want to be focused, remove noise. If you want to be strong, stop placing temptations within reach. Self-discipline is easier when your environment doesn't constantly pull you in the opposite direction. And remember, every environment you tolerate is a message to your future self. A cluttered space says, "My mind is not a priority." A noisy routine says, "I'll focus later." But a clear desk, a quiet walk, a phone on airplane mode, these speak a different truth. They say, "I choose clarity. I choose to lead, not react." In the end, you don't need more willpower. You need fewer distractions. You need a room that protects your peace, people who reflect your values, and a system that clears the path rather than clutters it. You don't have to fight chaos all day. You just have to stop inviting it in. That's the Stoic way. Change the room, change the rhythm. And soon the person changes too.
Number 5.
Momentum breeds motivation. Most people believe they need to feel motivated before they act. But the Stoics and any person who's ever accomplished something real know this isn't true. Motivation doesn't come first. It comes after. Action leads, emotion follows. It's not the fire that gets you started. It's the spark you earn by moving through resistance. As Epictetus said, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. He didn't say, wait until you feel like it. He said, act now, Identity follows effort, and motivation follows momentum. The modern world reverses this truth. It tells you to wait for inspiration, to align with your mood, to honor your emotional state before you begin. But that mindset is a trap, because moods shift, circumstances change, and if you only act when you feel like it, you'll be ruled by inconsistency. The Stoic path offers something more stable, something stronger. Begin with action, no matter how small. Start the wheel, let discipline pull emotion forward. This is the principle of momentum. It starts slow, always. The first step is the heaviest, the first sentence, the first rep, the first walk. But once you move, things shift. You feel different, not because the task is easier, but because you've reclaimed agency. You've proven to yourself that you are not a slave to hesitation. You've turned intention into motion, and that is a powerful signal to your nervous system. We are no longer stuck. Marcus Aurelius understood this. In meditations, he often reminded himself not to argue with what needed to be done. He didn't wait for ideal conditions. He didn't romanticize ease. He showed up, even on the days he didn't want to. And it's that consistency, day after day, word after word, that gave his life meaning. He acted his way into clarity, into strength, into peace. Now consider someone like Stephen King, one of the most prolific writers of our time. He writes every single day, not when inspired, not when it's convenient, but as a practice. Why? Because he knows something essential. Momentum creates its own fuel. You don't wait for the muse. You create space for it to arrive by showing up at the desk. This applies to your life too. Want to become disciplined? Start with one act of discipline. Want to become calm? Begin with one breath, one moment of silence. Want to become productive? Close the distraction and take the first focused step. Don't wait to want it, move toward it. Because the person who acts, even without motivation, is already becoming the person others wait their whole lives to feel like. And here's something deeper. Momentum builds trust. Every time you act without needing a mood, you strengthen your self-respect. You stop breaking promises to yourself. You stop waiting for some perfect moment to change, and the shift becomes visible. Not just internally, but in how others perceive you. People don't trust talk. They trust movement. Motion is proof. So ask yourself, where are you still waiting for permission to begin? What habit are you postponing until you feel ready? The Stoic knows that waiting is a form of resistance, and resistance is not something you reason with, it's something you break with action. This doesn't mean you do everything at once. It means you find the smallest step and you take it, then you take another. Not because it's easy, but because that's how strength is built. One honest motion at a time. In the end, it's not the dreamers who shape the world, it's the doers. Not the ones who talk about discipline, but the ones who take the first quiet step. Not the ones who hope for peace, but the ones who begin walking toward it. So move, even slowly, even imperfectly. Start the wheel, because once it turns you. That's how momentum works. That's how motivation is born. That's the Stoic path. You act, then you believe. Number 6, habits as emotional anchors. We often think of habits as tools for productivity, a way to manage time, to build routines, to get things done. But the Stoics understood something deeper. Habits are not just practical, they are emotional architecture. When your world is shaken, when grief hits, when disappointment blindsides you, it's not motivation that saves you. It's the structure you've built in advance. Habits become anchors. They hold you steady when your feelings want to pull you under. Seneca wrote, "He is most powerful who has power over himself." But how do you gain that power? Not in the moment of chaos, but before it. Through repetition, through small, steady habits. You don't train your discipline in the storm, you train it when the skies are clear, so that when the storm comes, you're not tossed around. You have a rope to hold on to, a rhythm to return to. That is the Stoic advantage. Consider this. Grief, heartbreak, betrayal, these are inevitable. Life will shake you. The only question is, what do you fall back on when it does? If your routines are built on impulse, you'll break. If they're built on conscious repetition, you bend, but you don't collapse. Marcus Aurelius faced the death of children, the betrayal of friends, and the weight of an empire. But every morning he returned to his journal, not to impress, but to remind himself. You have power over your mind, not outside events. That ritual, that habit was his anchor. In the modern world, we've become emotionally reactive because we have no fallback. We wake up to a flood of information. We check our phones before we check in with ourselves. We fill the silence instead of sitting with it. Then we wonder why we feel lost. But a Stoic doesn't start the day that way. A Stoic prepares for the day with a quiet moment, a breath, a reading, a journal entry. These aren't chores, they are shields. James Clear describes this in modern terms. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. But let's go even deeper. When emotions surge, you fall to the level of your rituals. Do you have a habit that holds you in stillness? A practice that brings you back to your principles? That's not luxury, that's survival. Look at Maya Angelou. Whenever she wrote, she rented a small hotel room. No distractions, no noise, just her and the words. It wasn't dramatic, it was a system, a habit, and that habit held her through immense personal pain, through loss, through silence, through rejection. The space became her anchor. The repetition became her clarity. So let me ask you, what anchors do you have? When you're anxious, do you scroll or do you sit still? When you're hurt, do you react or do you return to a principle? When you're overwhelmed, do you run or do you breathe and begin again? Stoicism doesn't ask you to feel nothing. It asks you to stay with yourself long enough to choose your response. And habits make that possible because habits are not just actions. They are messages to your nervous system. They say, this is who I am, even when I'm in pain. They are proof that you are not ruled by chaos, that you can return to something stable, something practiced, something earned. In the end, habits won't make the pain go away, but they will give you something stronger than comfort. They will give you continuity, a thread that holds through the noise, a rope that brings you back to center, not because you're always calm, but because you've practiced how to return there. That is the true purpose of habit, not to chase perfection, but to protect your peace, quietly, consistently, day by day. So when life shakes you, and it will, you don't shatter. You reset, you return, you endure. Number 7, discipline creates freedom. Most people misunderstand freedom. They think it's the absence of rules, the ability to do whatever you want, whenever you want. But that's not freedom. That's chaos, that's slavery to impulse. True freedom, the kind the Stoics spoke of, is not the removal of constraints, but the ability to govern yourself. And that power comes from discipline. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." That is the foundation of all Stoic practice. Freedom isn't something granted, it's something earned. By mastering your reactions, by training your habits, by aligning your life with what truly matters. It's not about doing more, it's about doing what's right, again and again, until right action becomes your nature. When people hear the word discipline, they often think of restriction, but the Stoic reframes it. Discipline is design, it's clarity, it's choosing to live in alignment with your principles rather than being dragged by your emotions. In a world ruled by noise, by speed, by constant demand, discipline is a form of rebellion, not against others, but against the chaos within. Let's look at Viktor Frankl. Though not a Stoic by name, he lived the philosophy. Even in the most extreme conditions, he chose his response. He chose dignity, purpose. He wrote, "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances." That's Stoicism embodied. That's discipline creating freedom, even in the darkest places. But what does this look like in everyday life? It looks like choosing silence over reaction, order over clutter, focus over scrolling. It means structuring your day so that the things that matter aren't left to chance. It means waking up before the world demands your attention, carving out space to align with your principles before the chaos begins. Marcus Aurelius did this. Despite ruling the Roman Empire, he carved out time each morning to write, to reflect, to realign. Why? Because even an emperor needed structure to stay centered. His power wasn't in his title, it was in his clarity, his commitment, his internal order. We often think freedom is found in the absence of rules. But look at any great musician, any great athlete, any great thinker. Their freedom came through discipline, the freedom to express, to create, to lead, because the foundation had been built: repetition, practice, restraint. That is the paradox. The more disciplined you are, the more freely you can move. And the same is true for your emotional life. When you live reactively, you're always at the mercy of others. One comment ruins your day, one disappointment derails your path. But when you live with discipline, you create space, you pause, you choose. That pause is your freedom, that choice is your power. So ask yourself, where in your life do you confuse comfort with freedom? Where are you letting ease replace intention? The Stoic doesn't fear structure, he welcomes it, because he knows, without structure, there is no sovereignty. Without discipline, there is no peace. In the end, discipline is not punishment, it's a gift, a quiet architecture for a good life. It protects your time, it clarifies your values, it sharpens your presence, and yes, it sets you free, not because life becomes easier, but because you become stronger. You don't need to do everything. You just need to do what matters, daily, deliberately, with grace. That's what the Stoics knew. That's what modern life forgets. But you can remember, you can reclaim it. Discipline is the gate. Freedom is what waits on the other side. So now you know, it's not the big dramatic changes that shape your life. It's the small, invisible habits you repeat when no one's watching. Discipline isn't about punishment. It's about power. Habits aren't just routines. They're the architecture of your character. In freedom, it isn't found in doing whatever you want. It's found in becoming the kind of person who chooses wisely, calmly, with clarity. The Stoics didn't chase motivation. They built systems. They didn't react. They returned to principle, and every day they practiced, not to impress the world, but to master themselves. So ask yourself, what habits are building the person you're becoming? If this message grounded you, if it gave you clarity, do something with it. Hit like, share this video with someone who needs it, and subscribe for more Stoic wisdom every single week. Because discipline is daily, peace is practiced, and this journey, we walk it together.